Stranger Things has always been about the unknown, but there are still so many questions the show hasn't answered, so today we're breaking down the biggest mysteries Stranger Things still hasn't explained. What happened to the Demodog in the Byers fridge? Everyone remembers that scene at the end of Season 2. Hawkins' lab is in ruins, the gate is sealed, and for once, things feel calm. But then there is Dustin. He looks at that dead Demodog like it is a science fair project, drags it home, and stuffs it in Joyce Byers' fridge. Then the scene cuts, the story moves on, and that Demodog is never mentioned again. That tiny moment might seem funny, but it has been haunting fans for years. Because this is not just any creature. This thing came straight from the Upside Down, connected to the Mind Flayer, and built to kill. For it to end up frozen in a random family's freezer is wild. The way Dustin handles it is even crazier. He is proud, calm, and almost protective. Like he is not just keeping a corpse, but proof that he and his friends actually survived something impossible. When you think about it, this scene says a lot about Dustin's character. He's curious to a fault. He named a Demogorgon, kept it as a pet, and still felt bad after it tried to eat his friends. Putting one in a fridge feels like something only Dustin Henderson would do. But what makes this moment truly unsettling is what happens next. Or rather, what does not. Season 3 comes and goes. The Byers move out, Joyce packs the house, and nobody ever says a word about what might still be sitting inside that fridge. No one from the government ever comes to clean it up. No curious neighbor peeks in. It just disappears from the story completely. And that silence makes it worse. Because what if it was not really dead? We know the Upside Down breaks every rule of nature. Its creatures survive burns, gunshots, and explosions. What if freezing one only put it in some kind of stasis? Imagine that thing thawing years later while the Byers are living their new life in California. Or someone opening the wrong fridge box and realizing what they have been keeping all along. The lack of closure makes this one of the strangest unresolved mysteries in Stranger Things. Maybe the Duffer Brothers cut it for pacing. Maybe they planned to circle back but never did. Still, the image of that frozen monster lingers because it reminds us that in Hawkins, nothing stays gone forever. The gate may be closed, the monsters may be silent, but the horror always finds a way back. That Demodog in the Byers fridge is not just a forgotten subplot. It is a symbol of what Stranger Things does best. Every victory hides another secret waiting to thaw. Kinda wild, right? But that's just one of the weird things the show left hanging. Where are Steve's parents? For 4 seasons, we have seen Steve Harrington grow from the arrogant boy who only cared about his reflection to the brave, loyal friend who would die to protect his crew. But through all his evolution, one question has never been answered. Where are Steve's parents? In the first season, it feels like a background detail. Steve throws parties in a house that looks too expensive for any teenager to have to himself. When the Demogorgon attacks, there's no sign of adults anywhere. His parents are mentioned briefly as being out of town, which sounds normal at first. But as time passes, that excuse starts to feel like something deeper. By season 2, Steve's character starts to shift. He becomes more caring, more human. He fights for people who do not even like him. He teaches Dustin how to talk to girls, how to do his hair, and how to survive the world. It is beautiful growth, but it also raises a quiet question. Who taught Steve how to care? Because it clearly was not his parents. Season 3 drives the point home. Steve is working at Scoops Ahoy, wearing a sailor hat and trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life. He jokes about using his mom as a reference, but there is no mention of either parent showing up or even checking in. He gets beaten by Russians, drugged by experiments, and almost dies underground. Still no call from home. The way Stranger Things handles it almost feels intentional. Steve's parents are ghosts. Their absence might explain almost everything about him. His need to be liked, his loyalty, even his softness toward kids like Dustin and Robin. He tries to give them what he never had, a sense of safety, someone who listens, someone who shows up. Fans have theories, of course. Some say his parents are emotionally distant rich people who do not care. Others think the Duffers kept them invisible to make Steve's loneliness more obvious. Whatever the reason, it works. His empty house becomes a metaphor, a big quiet place that looks perfect on the outside but feels cold inside. By making his parents practically non-existent, Stranger Things gave Steve something rare, a real reason to grow. His kindness does not come from a stable home or a good example. It comes from pain, from learning what not to be. And maybe that is why everyone loves him so much, because Steve Harrington is proof that you can come from nothing, be ignored, be lonely, and still choose to be good. Still, he's not the only one the show forgot to explain. Where's Dustin's dad? Dustin Henderson has always been the heart of the group. Funny, smart, loyal, and endlessly curious. His mom Claudia is one of the few adults who brings warmth to the story, but one person who's completely missing is Dustin's dad. We see him only once at Will's funeral in season 1, and then he disappears from the show entirely. No one ever talks about him. Claudia never mentions him. Dustin never hints at missing him. It's as if he vanished from their lives. That tiny detail might seem small, but it shows how Stranger Things often hints at deeper family issues without spelling them out. Every kid in Hawkins has some kind of family issue. Will's father Lonnie Johnny left them long ago. Max lost her dad and ended up with an abusive stepfather. Lucas and Erica are always trying to get their parents to notice them. Dustin fits right into that pattern. A missing father, another quiet heartbreak in a town full of monsters. The simplest explanation is that Dustin's parents got divorced. Mr. Henderson could have moved away or remarried, leaving Claudia to raise their son alone. Considering her soft personality, she probably avoided talking about it with Dustin to keep things light. But it's also possible that the writers originally intended to include him, then rewrote Dustin's story before season 2. Still, his absence adds a hidden layer to Dustin's character. He clings tightly to his friends because they fill that missing space. Steve becomes the big brother he never had. Eddie becomes the mentor who believes in him. Hopper becomes a father figure to the entire group, and Dustin thrives under that kind of care. Every joke he cracks, every clever idea he throws out feels like his way of masking loneliness. If you look closely at his relationship with his mom, you can tell Dustin acts older than he is. He takes care of her just as much as she takes care of him. That kind of dynamic often grows from a broken home. When he comforts her after Dart escapes or calls her from camp, you can see the love and guilt mixed together. The show might never mention Mr. Henderson again, but his absence works quietly in the background. It makes Dustin's bond with others stronger. It's part of why his friendship with Eddie hit so hard in season 4, and why his grief was so real. He's a kid who keeps losing people, but keeps finding new family too. Season 5 probably won't bring Mr. Henderson back or even explain where he went. Maybe he's gone for good. But fans don't really need him to show up. Dustin has already built his own family from scratch when made of friends who fight monsters together and would die for each other. In a town like Hawkins, that kind of love is worth more than any father's return, and that's not the only family mystery the show quietly skipped. Do Terry and Becky Ives know where Eleven is? When Eleven first meets her mother in season 2, it feels like a long-awaited reunion that suddenly turns tragic. Terry Ives sits silently in her chair, trapped inside her own mind. Her eyes flicker, but her body does not move. She is locked in a permanent loop of memories, repeating the same words over and over again. Becky Ives tries to help her sister every day, but even she cannot reach her. That whole storyline leaves fans wondering what happened after Eleven left. Do Terry and Becky know she is alive? Do they know she saved Hawkins multiple times? The show never goes back to them, and that silence is heavy. In season 3 and 4, Eleven never mentions her mother or aunt. Hopper never talks about them either. It almost feels like that chapter was closed without warning. The truth is that Terry Ives once fought hard to expose Dr. Brenner and the Hawkins lab. She joined the MK Ultra experiments while pregnant, and when she realized what they had done, she tried to get her baby back. But Brenner erased her memory and broke her mind in the process. What remains is a shell of who she was, a woman living in a time loop, repeating fragments of that day again and again. Eleven's visit in season 2 proves that some part of Terry still recognizes her daughter. She tries to warn Elle about the danger, saying, "Breathe, sunflower, rainbow." Those words lead Eleven straight to her lost sister, Kaylee. Becky, on the other hand, represents the life Eleven never had. She offers her food, warmth, and a chance at a real home. But when Becky calls the police to tell Hopper where Eleven is, the young girl runs away. It's a heartbreaking moment because Becky genuinely means well. She just doesn't understand the world Eleven is trapped in. Since that episode, neither Terry nor Becky have appeared again. Maybe that's because Eleven's life became too secret. Hopper gave her a new identity and later took her to California. For safety reasons, it makes sense that he'd keep the Ives family out of the loop. The government has been chasing Eleven since she escaped the lab. Knowing her true location could put her biological family in danger. Still, the emotional weight of that separation lingers. Eleven is surrounded by people who love her, but there's a whole inner story. She has found fathers in Hopper and mentors in Brenner and Owens, but her mother remains a ghost. Even if Terry can never recover, she is the reason Eleven exists, the reason this whole story began. It's unlikely that season 5 will bring them back since the final chapter will focus on Hawkins and the battle with Vecna, but the mystery of whether Terry and Becky know about Eleven's new life stays alive in fans' minds. Somewhere out there, Becky Ives might still keep the lights on, hoping that one day her niece will walk through the door again. It's heartbreaking, honestly, but not as insane as Dr. Brenner somehow making it out alive. How did Dr. Brenner survive the Demogorgon's attack? When the Demogorgon stormed through Hawkins' lab in season 1, it tore everything apart. The alarms blared, the lights flickered, and in the chaos, we saw Dr. Martin Brenner face the monster head on. Its claws reached for him, and then the screen cut to black. Everyone assumed he was dead, even Eleven did. But 2 seasons later, we find out he is alive. Ray Carroll. One of his old associates tells Eleven and Kaylee that Brenner survived. At first, it sounds sounds like a lie, but then Season 4 confirms it. Brenner is back working with the military and once again controlling Eleven's fate. The mystery is that no one ever explains how he made it out. It feels strange because every other person who came face to face with the Demogorgon died. Brenner was older, slower, and unarmed. So how did he live? Some fans believe he was rescued by his team during the attack, maybe dragged out by soldiers while the monster was distracted. Others think the creature never actually killed him because it was drawn to something stronger, the energy from Eleven's psychic outburst. There's also the possibility that Brenner planned for that attack. He knew the risks of experimenting with gates to the Upside Down and probably had safety measures hidden throughout the lab. Maybe there were sealed tunnels or emergency exits that only he could access. After all, this was a man who always stayed one step ahead of everyone, even when the situation turned deadly. Season 4 shows a frailer version of him scarred and walking with a cane. That detail matters. It hints that he did survive something brutal. He carries physical proof of that day, yet instead of stopping, he doubled down trying to control the very power that almost killed him. He brought Eleven back only to push her harder, forcing her to relive her trauma, all in the name of science. When he finally dies in the desert, his last words reveal everything about his character. Brenner never saw himself as a villain. In his mind, he was saving Eleven, protecting her even though his experiments ruined her childhood. His survival from the Demogorgon only made him more obsessed with control. The show may never tell us exactly how he escaped, but maybe that is the point. If Brenner could cheat death, then maybe the lab's secrets didn't die with him either. How did the Russians find out about the Upside Down? Season 3 flipped the entire story of Stranger Things on its head. Just when everyone thought the danger was contained in Hawkins, the show revealed something bigger. A secret Soviet facility hidden right beneath Starcourt Mall. The Russians were not just in town for espionage or politics. They were trying to open a gate to the Upside Down. The first time we see their experiments, it feels random. Why would the Soviets even know that this world exists? How could they possibly understand something so connected to Eleven and Hawkins' lab? But there is a deeper story buried underneath. The Russians had to learn about the Upside Down somehow, and the truth might be more terrifying than any Demogorgon. The series never explains how the Soviets first learned of the Upside Down, but several clues and fan theories suggest they were tracking Hawkins long before the events of Season 3. One theory that fits perfectly with the show's timeline is that the Russians were watching Hawkins from the very beginning. When Eleven tore open that first rift in 1983, the explosion of energy could have been detected halfway across the world. That kind of supernatural disturbance does not stay hidden from governments, especially those locked in a Cold War. So it is possible that Soviet intelligence picked up on it, maybe through spies or even stolen research from Dr. Brenner's team. By Season 3, we know they have enough data to build their own gate. They replicate the technology they believe Hawkins' lab used, but fail again and again. Still, they persist working underground right in the middle of small-town America. They even managed to trap a Demogorgon, suggesting they succeeded in opening a portal at least once. And by the time Hopper is captured in Season 4, we see that they have more than just a creature. They have particles of the Mind Flayer too. But the question remains how. Maybe they had agents stationed near Hawkins when everything went down in Season 1. Maybe they captured someone connected to the lab who revealed classified information. It could also be that the gate itself leaked energy strong enough to attract scientific interest from around the world. Whatever the answer is, the Russians did not stumble into this. They were hunting it deliberately. The irony is that they never truly understood what they were dealing with. To them, the Upside Down was a weapon. To Vecna, it was a mind. The Russians thought they were in control, but they were only opening more doors for him. They turned Hawkins into a battlefield without ever knowing who the real enemy was. But the Russians weren't the only ones trying to unlock what they didn't understand. Where did the other Hawkins lab test subjects come from? From the very beginning of Stranger Things, fans have been obsessed with the children who came before Eleven. We knew she was not the only one because her tattoo said 011. That meant there were at least 10 others somewhere out there. Season 2 gave us a glimpse when we met Kaylee, also known as 8, but after that, the story went quiet. Then, Season 4 pulled back the curtain again, showing us a whole group of gifted children living and training at Hawkins' lab. For a moment, it looked like we were finally going to get answers, but when the season ended, fans were left with more questions than before. Where did these kids come from? Were they kidnapped like Eleven, or given up by their families? The show never says. All we know is that Dr. Brenner raised them inside the lab, teaching them obedience under the disguise of control. They were experiments children shaped into weapons, but how they got there stays blurry. Some theories suggest that the government handpicked kids who showed early signs of telekinesis or unusual intelligence. Others believe they were taken from parents who were already part of the MK Ultra program, just like Terry Ives. The Stranger Things comics and novels offer a few more clues. In 6 and Into the Fire, we meet other subjects who were not stolen, but brought in by their own families either for money or because they were convinced Brenner could help them. These stories make the whole project feel darker. Not every parent was innocent. Some were desperate enough to hand their children over to the lab without realizing what that choice really meant. By the time we reach season 4, the truth becomes even messier. We meet Henry Creel, who was not born in the lab, but became its first subject after killing his mother and sister. Brenner saw what Henry could do and turned his powers into the foundation for the rest. Every other child, including 11, was modeled after him. So in a twisted way, the rest of the test subjects exist because of Henry. They are copies built from his DNA from his curse. What makes this mystery so haunting is that most of them are already gone. Henry killed nearly everyone in the massacre that turned him into Vecna. Those rooms filled with blood and broken glass erased years of hidden history. Each of those kids had a story, a family, a name, but now they exist only as flashbacks. Maybe the show will never reveal where they all came from, because their mystery is part of what makes Eleven's story so tragic. She was never special because she was alone. She was special because she survived. Every other number became a ghost of Brenner's sins, lost somewhere between science and horror. But maybe the strangest part of all this wasn't the lab itself. It was what one of the kids became after why does Kaylee have different powers? When 11 met Kaylee in season 2, it felt like a door opening to a much bigger world. Up until then, we thought every test subject from Hawkins' lab had the same kind of power, telekinesis and telepathy. But Kaylee was different. She could reach into people's minds and make them see what she wanted them to see. Her power was illusion, not force. She could create entire realities inside someone's head and make them believe they were real. At first, it looked like she might have been from a completely separate experiment, but season 2 never explained why she was so different. Fans kept waiting for her to return, yet she never did. By season 4, we saw all the other test subjects and not one of them shared Kaylee's ability. Every child except her had powers like 11. That makes her an outlier, maybe even an accident. The play. The first shadow gives a possible answer. It shows a young Henry Creel using his powers in a similar way before he ever entered Hawkins' lab. He creates an illusion for a girl he likes, shaping her thoughts and emotions with nothing but his mind. That moment might be the key. If Henry could use illusions, and if the other test subjects were created using his DNA, then Kaylee's ability might not be random at all. She could just be the one who mastered that side of Henry's power, while the others focused on telekinesis. Still, the difference in how she uses it makes her fascinating. 11 breaks things apart. Kaylee changes what people see. One destroys reality while the other rewrites it. That contrast feels intentional, almost like two sides of the same mind. Maybe Brenner pushed the others toward brute strength, but Kaylee escaped before he could shape her fully, so her gift grew in another direction. There's also the emotional side of it. Kaylee uses her powers to survive. She makes people see what she wants so she can hide from her trauma. 11 uses hers to fight. Both of them are trying to heal in their own ways. Their abilities reflect their pain. Whether or not season 5 brings her back does not matter as much as what she represents. Kaylee shows that there are many ways to be powerful. She does not move things with her mind, but she controls perception itself, and that might be even stronger. If she ever returns to help 11 fight Henry, it will not just be another team up. It will be the reunion of two sisters shaped by the same darkness trying to take down the man who created them both. But what if Kaylee's story wasn't unique at all? What if she was just another reflection of something much worse? Where do Henry's powers come from? By the time season 4 rolled around, Stranger Things finally showed us the face behind all the pain. Henry Creel, also known as One, also known as Vecna. We learned that he was not just another experiment, he was the beginning. The blueprint for every other child Brenner ever tested on. But one mystery still hangs over his story. Where did his powers come from in the first place? Even before he met Brenner, Henry was already different. When his family moved into the Creel house, he could hear everything. Clocks ticking, bugs crawling, thoughts whispering in his head. He hated the noise of normal life because he could feel it all. That kind of ability did not come from the lab, it came from him. When Henry kills his mother and sister, the show leaves a strange silence around it. We see his nose bleed, we see the lights flicker, we see the house twist as if something unnatural has entered it. Then Brenner finds him and begins his experiments, but the story skips how Henry became that way. He just is. That missing piece made fans dig deeper, and some answers appeared outside the show. In the stage play, the first shadow Brenner finally explains that before Henry moved to Hawkins, his father worked with stolen scientific equipment. Henry found one of those machines and accidentally activated it. That experiment pulled him into a place older than the Upside Down called Dimension X. When he came back, his blood was different and his mind had changed forever. That revelation changes everything. In the first shadow, Brenner reveals that Henry once made contact with something called Dimension X, a world older than the Upside Down itself. The show hasn't shown this yet, But if it's truly connected, it suggests Henry didn't just stumble upon the Upside Down. He might have shaped it. His powers would not be random mutations, but the side effect of being exposed to something beyond human understanding. It also makes sense why Brenner became obsessed with him. Henry was living proof that this other world could alter biology. Brenner wanted to recreate that. He wanted to manufacture the supernatural through science. That is how Eleven and the other children were born. Not gifted, but engineered through a formula Brenner never fully understood. The tragic part is that Henry was never meant to be evil. He was just a boy who saw too much. But once he realized how small humanity was compared to what he had seen, he turned his pain into power. He believed he was cleansing the world, when in truth he was corrupting it. The mystery of where Henry's powers come from might never be explored in the show again, but the play's version fits perfectly. He is not just another psychic, he is a bridge between two worlds, the first human to be touched by something monstrous, and the one who brought that darkness home. But there's still one mystery that hits closer than all the rest. Who is Eleven's biological father? Out of all the questions in Stranger Things, this one feels the most personal. We know who Eleven's mother is. We have seen Terry Ives broken by what Brenner did to her, and trapped in her own mind repeating fragments of the past. But one name never comes up. The man who helped bring Eleven into the world, her father. The show treats it like a secret buried too deep to matter. Terry's memories never show him. Brenner never mentions him. Even when Dr. Owens gives Hopper a new birth certificate listing himself as Eleven's father, the story moves on without a single clue about who her real dad might be. Fans have spent years trying to fill in that silence. Some believe Brenner was not just her creator, but her biological father too. Others think Henry might somehow be connected. Both theories are dark enough to make sense in this world. But then, there is the official novel Suspicious Minds, which quietly answers the question. It reveals that Terry's boyfriend in college was a man named Andrew Rich. He was kind and idealistic, the exact opposite of Brenner. When Terry joined the MKUltra program, Brenner saw Andrew as a threat. He used his influence to get Andrew expelled from school and drafted into the Vietnam War. Andrew died overseas, never knowing that Terry was pregnant. That version of the story feels heartbreaking in a more human way. Eleven was not born from science or evil, but from love that was cut short. Her father died before he could even meet her, and her mother lost her mind trying to get her back. Everything about Eleven's life started with loss. It could also explain why Brenner treated her like property. Without Andrew there to protect her, Brenner had full control. He made himself her only authority figure, twisting science into fatherhood. When she finally found Hopper, it was the first time she experienced what real family felt like. That is why their bond hits so deeply. It is not just father and daughter, it is a girl finally finding what was stolen from her at birth. Whether the show decides to make the novel canon or not does not really matter. Andrew Rich might never appear on screen, but his story fills the emotional gap left in Eleven's past. He reminds us that even in a world of monsters and labs and psychic warfare, there was once something simple behind it all. A young couple in love, a child they never got to raise, and a girl who grew up to save the world in both their names. Subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into Hawkins' darkest secrets,